Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja. I think I missed a verse. Sorry, just 1 second. Oh, yes. Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Shri Radhe Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Shubhadra, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. With that, go to Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. So we'll continue with reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. This chapter is titled No One Listens to a Poor Man, and we'll be continuing it on from Panchajanya. I was a new devotee and I asked Prabhupada, what about swimming? Is that not Maya? Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya used to go swimming all the time. He used to play ball, so you can go and swim. Just make sure you remember Krishna. Buddhi Maharaj's ashram was a simple single-story building of about 8 rooms. When he offered Prabhupada the room next to his own, Prabhupada was pleased, accepting it as an expression of friendship. Prabhupada relaxed with his godbrothers, Buddhi Maharaj and Ananda Brahmachari, speaking with them in Bengali. Buddhi Maharaj said he appreciated Prabhupada's work and his Western disciples. Prabhupada's disciples had already seen formal exchanges of obeisances between Prabhupada and his godbrothers, as when in Bombay they had seen Prabhupada get off his Vyasasana and offer dandavats to his godbrothers. But in Vishakhapatnam, they saw more intimate dealings. They saw for the first time Srila Prabhupada living comfortably at ease in the same quarters as his godbrothers, and they didn't feel themselves being treated condescendingly or superficially, or being regarded as oddities. Through Prabhupada's guidance, they began to learn more of the essential friendly and humble exchanges between Vaishnavas. Prabhupada's godbrother Ananda was eager to cook and serve not only Srila Prabhupada but all his disciples. Ananda was elderly, and yet he took the position of always offering menial service. Although he spoke very little English, Prabhupada's disciples could perceive the affection of Ananda and Srila Prabhupada for each other. Ananda's communication with Prabhupada's disciples was particularly through his cooking and serving of prasadam. Each morning, everyone would gather on the veranda outside Prabhupada's quarters, the men sitting on one side, the ladies on the other. Down the center aisle, Ananda would walk briskly, distributing prasadam, while Prabhupada sat at one end in a wooden chair, fingering his japa beads and observing the devotees take prasadam. Prabhupada had supplied money to the ashram, and Ananda was regularly cooking sumptuous feasts. Deep fried chunks of potatoes and powdered spices, rice, yogurt, dal, 3 different types of sabjis, French fries, chutney, malpura, rajkeli, sandesh, shira, and everything cooked to a nectarian standard of excellence. Prabhupada would sit at the head of the 2 rows of devotees and encourage them to take prasadam, give him more. Prabhupada would praise Ananda's cooking, smiling with pleasure to see his disciples accept prasadam. The devotees would finish, having been induced to eat as much as they possibly could, and Srila Prabhupada would say aloud the Prema Dhwani, and then all the devotees would shout in response, Jai. After one such feast, Prabhupada called the devotees into his room and remarked, see how he is cooking. He cooks everything, he serves it, and then he doesn't eat until everyone is fully satisfied. This is Vaishnava, how he should act. He is more satisfied to serve than to enjoy himself. The feasts continued twice a day, and in the evening many guests arrived to take prasadam, chant in the kirtans, and hear Srila Prabhupada lecture. One day, Srila Prabhupada took his disciples to see a famous temple of Lord Nrsimha, Sri Simhachalam, on top of a hill about 5 miles north of Vishakhapatnam. Thousands of stone steps led up to the hill to the temple, which was situated in a natural amphitheater on the side of the hill. Prabhupada said the temple, which was now run by the followers of the Ramanuja sect, was particularly important because Lord Chaitanya had visited there on his tour of South India. Srila Prabhupada chose to approach the temple by car, riding up the winding road past orchards of mango, jackfruit, and cashew, and fields of pineapple. On arriving at the temple, Srila Prabhupada and his disciples met one of the temple brahmanas, who showed them around the grounds. The temple buildings were of black granite and carved into the rock were the forms and pastimes of Vishnu, especially in his incarnation of Lord Nrsimha. As Prabhupada moved from place to place, building to building, he sometimes rode up steep stairs on a palanquin carried by 4 men. When Prabhupada came upon an immense banyan tree at the lower end of the temple grounds, he said that the tree must be thousands of years old. As he stood beneath the tree, his servant Nandakumar handed him a small champaka flower. Extending his thumb and forefinger from his bead bag, Prabhupada held the champaka flower and looked fondly at it. This flower, he said, is the color of Lord Chaitanya, and this flower is the most loved all over India. This flower is beautiful to look at and beautiful to smell. He carried the small saffron gold flower between his fingers throughout the rest of the morning. When Prabhupada and his group entered the inner sanctum where the deity of Lord Nrsimha resided, their guide explained that the murti dated back to the time of Prahlad Maharaj. An ancient king named Pururava and his consort Urvashi had once visited this hill, and at the request of Urvashi, the murti who had appeared to her in a dream had been excavated. The Lord had ordained that he should be worshipped in this place, but that he should give darshan only one day a year during the month of Vaishakha. The rest of the year he would be entirely covered with ground sandalwood pulp mixed with camphor and other scents. Therefore, the deity now appeared to be only a lump covered with a layer of sandalwood. Prabhupada commented that the sandalwood was to keep the deity cool-headed. Madhavananda. When Prabhupada was at the Nrsimha temple in Vishakhapatnam, it was the same as when he was in Vrindavan. When he got out of the car, he was very grave. We went into the temple, and there was a chamber. Then we went down. The walls were 4 feet thick, and it seemed like hundreds of feet of tunnels before we got into the inner sanctum. There was a deity with just a mound of sandalwood paste on him. As soon as we entered, Prabhupada said, begin chanting the Nrsimha mantra. So we started singing Tavakara Kamala Vare Nakham Adbhuta Shringam, and we circumambulated the deity. Then we stood before the deity, and Prabhupada offered obeisances. Guru Kripa. When we came into the deity room, Prabhupada had us sing Nrsimha prayers. He always manifested such devotion. That was what separated him from us, not only his learning or his knowledge, but his devotion. In these places, we would see him become very silent, very grave, and when he would speak, such peace would fill us from within. When he would speak, you could feel it. He was constantly convincing us of Krishna consciousness, not purposely, but he was just being himself. In these places, it would come out. When Prabhupada stood with us before the deity, we couldn't even see. There was just a mound of sandalwood. There was one Brahmana with big earlobes, and he had a ring in his ears. We offered some money, but it was a very devotional time. Prabhupada didn't say much, and the main reason was that the places are appreciated according to one's spiritual advancement. The details and facts and the history are not really important. There is nothing really to say. Prabhupada would just make sure we had the proper respect and didn't commit any offense. There's only a page and a half in this chapter, so I'll finish it. Prabhupada would lecture in the evening, speaking sometimes at schools and social clubs in Vishakhapatnam. During the program at the Ramakrishna Hall, where more than 1,000 people attended, Srila Prabhupada's dancing induced the entire audience to dance. The devotees danced in a ring around Srila Prabhupada, and the kirtan continued for an hour. At another program, a bearded American anthropologist rode up on a motorcycle to attend Prabhupada's lecture and kirtan. Afterward, the anthropologist told Srila Prabhupada that he had come to India to study the primitive tribes. Prabhupada told him it was simply a waste of time. Why do you want to study the primitive people? He asked. Why don't you study the exalted people? And Prabhupada narrated a story. One time, a poor man roasted a cob of corn and then began picking off the kernels one at a time and eating them. In this way, it took him many hours to finish. He did this, Prabhupada said, because he had nothing else to do, just to pass the time of day. In the same way, the study of anthropology was simply a waste of time. Prabhupada asked, why don't you study some person or a group of persons from whom you can learn something? During the day, Prabhupada would sit outside his room and enjoy the atmosphere. He wore no shirt and his healthy body shone with golden luster as he sat drinking freshly pressed sugarcane juice. This is just how it is in Vaikuntha, he said. There is always a very cool, pleasant breeze. He often walked about, chanting, talking about Krishna, listening to the devotees' kirtan, and observing the activities of the temple. Repeatedly, Prabhupada invited Puri Maharaj to come and preach the West. He requested him to come to at least come to Mayapur for ISKCON's international gathering of devotees. Prabhupada felt that Puri Maharaj, on seeing all the Western disciples, might feel moved to join him and preach. Puri Maharaj agreed to accompany Prabhupada to Calcutta and Mayapur, and the pleasant week in Vishakhapatnam came to an end with Prabhupada, his disciples, and Puri Maharaj looking forward to traveling together to Calcutta. Guru Kripa. Although we arrived at the train station early, the train was already at the platform. It was very hot, and 5 or 6 of us were having kirtan. Then Shamsundar climbed up a coconut tree and got this fantastic coconut. He opened it and gave it to Prabhupada, who proceeded to drink a lot. Then Prabhupada gave it to Shamsundara, and Shamsundara drank. Then Prabhupada said, give it to the kirtan members. Each man in the kirtan group was so thirsty that he wasn't even thinking of leaving any for the next man, but would just pass this coconut around, and the thing wouldn't empty. I tilted it up, and the coconut water was coming out, pouring on my shirt, and I was drinking and drinking, but still it wouldn't empty. We were amazed. Prabhupada was smiling, and we were chanting. We all became cool and satisfied. Shamsundara. Prabhupada and I were in a first-class railway coach, a private compartment for 2 persons, clickety-clacking through the warm Indian night, somewhere between Vishakhapatnam and Calcutta. Prabhupada was talking and joking and playing tapes until around 10:30 p.m., when he lay down to take rest. For a while, I switched off the lights. At about midnight, Prabhupada sat upright and called my name. Shamsundara, take dictation, he said. Then followed a train of thoughts so lucid and coherent that I could only conclude that while we think Srila Prabhupada is sleeping, he is usually not sleeping, but is thinking, reflecting on ways to serve Krishna more and more. And this is the end of chapter 38. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Moving on to the verse. The verse is 5, 19, 15. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tanna Prabho Tvam Kukale Vararpitam Tvanmayayaham Mamatam Adhokshaja Bhindyama Yena Shuvayam Sudhurbhitam Videhi Yogam Tvai Na Swabhayam Iti. Would someone else also like to read the verse, please?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am reading. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Tanna prabhutam kukale vararpitam tanmayayaham mamatam Vindam jena shubhaya sudurvidam videhi yogam toina sabhavamiti. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
तन्न प्रभूतं कुकलेवरार्पितं त्वन्माययाहं ममतामधोक्षज विन्द्यामिनाशु वयं सुदुर्भिदां विदेहि योगं त्वयि न स्वभावमिति। हरे कृष्ण।
Krishna, thank you, Mataji. Would someone else like to read the verse as well?
Hare Krishna, Vandita.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
May I try, please?
Yes, 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 please.
Chapter 15, no?
Yes, 5:19:15.
Tanna prabhutam kukulevararpitam tvam mayayaham mamatam adhokshaja vindayama yena shuvayam sudhurbhidam videhi yogam tvayina swabhavamiti. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So we'll move on to word by word translation. That, therefore, na, our, Prabho, O my Lord, Tvam, you, Ku Kalavera Arpitam, invested in this bad body full of stool and urine, Tvat Maya, by our illusory energy, Aham Mamatam, the conception of I and my, Adhokshaja, O transcendence, Vindhyama, may give up, Yena, by which, Asu, very soon, Vayam, we, Sudurvidam, which is very difficult to give up, Videhi, please give, Yogam, the mystic process, Tvayi, unto you, Na, our, Swabhavam, which is symptomized by a steady mind, Iti, thus. And translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Therefore, O Lord, O Transcendence, kindly help us by giving us the power to execute Bhakti Yoga, so that we can control our restless minds and fix them upon you. We are all infected by our illusory energy. Therefore, we are very attached to the body, which is full of stool and urine, and to anything related with the body. Except for devotional service, there is no way to give up this attachment. Therefore, kindly bestow upon us this benediction and purport. The Lord advises in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. The perfect yoga system consists of always thinking of Krishna, always engaging in devotional service, always worshipping Krishna, and always offering obeisances unto him. Unless we practice this yoga system, our illusory attachment for this bad body, which is full of stool and urine, is impossible to give us. The perfection of yoga consists of giving up attachment for this body and bodily relationships, and transferring that attachment to Krishna. We are very attached to material enjoyment, but when we transfer the same attachment to Krishna, we traverse the path of liberation. One has to practice this yoga system and none other. Just to phrase both of them. Narayanam namaskritam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet Srinvatam swakatha Krishna punya shravana kirtanam hridiyantas tohiya bhadrani vidunoti suritsatam. Um, so we are in this, it was still currently still exploring Jambudweep and Bharatvarsh. And how Srimad Bhagavatam describes this place not really as just a planet, but as a field of action. And I guess to understand this verse today, I was recently reading a book. It's called The Midnight Library. And if we transpose from that book to here, it helped me understand the verse. I'll just be sharing that. Um, And basically, we just have to look at the concept of God or concept of Krishna as this librarian, and our existence as this vast library from moving on from these 8.4 million species of life. And the librarian provides these books, and each of the books being the lives that we can live. And just like everything, it also has the laws of the library. And the thing that we provide is sort of the decisions that goes through, and how each decision, I guess, has a different outcome, whether that decision is, I guess, to stay in the attachments of the material world or to move this attachment onto Krishna. And if we again look at the translation, therefore, O Lord, um, therefore, O Lord, O Transcendence, kindly help us by giving us the power to execute Bhakti Yoga so that we can control our restless minds and fix them upon you. We are all infected by your illusory energy. Therefore, we are very attached to the body, which is full of stool and urine, and to anything related with the body. Except for devotional service, there is no way to give up this attachment. Therefore, kindly bestow us this benediction. Um, So the first thing that this verse does is sort of give us a shock therapy about um, the body being called Gu Kalevara, which I think word by word translation of that was um, Gu Kalevara Arpitam, invested in this bad body full of stool and urine. So that's where we're sort of getting the first, um, not really shock. Well, we're getting the shock treatment, but we're also getting the actual realization um, of what the body is instead of actually being attached to it. And because of this infection of aham, mamata, I and mine, um, we say that yes, we are the body. We say to ourselves that we're the body, but this is sort of giving us that shock therapy and giving us the reminder that no matter how much we try and decorate the body, it's still ku kalevara, and it's basically a temporary vessel of stool and urine. And that's, I guess, also when we sort of realize that um, it's not to change the life, we have to change the attachment to what life should be. And if we are sort of stuck in this maze library of material attachments, then it's basically telling us to go to the librarian, ask them to find you a book that will move the paradigm shift from the attachments of material nature to the attachments of Krishna, and find our way out of this maze library. Um, and even again, so the body's physical reality, it's that even with His Holiness Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, how he calls us spiriton, basically having a consciousness in his books. Um, and how we are, I guess, temporarily mistaking ourselves as how we're mistaking ourselves with a temporary bag of chemicals made of stool and urine and bile. And this is again this sort of imagery, even though it's graphic, it's still also shown. And I think Science of Self-Realization, either chapter 3 or chapter 7, um, with the chapter title "The Liquid Beauty," where there's I think some really rich merchant who's very enamored by this girl who is very beautiful. And this girl asks him to come after this period of 7 days. And he's thinking, oh, okay, we'll see what preparations or something that he's doing, that this girl's doing, she's doing. But basically, what this girl's doing is basically just collecting vomit, collecting urine, collecting stool, and just saying. And when he sees her after 7 days, she's no longer carrying that beauty, because at the end of it, it is just made of stool, urine, and bile, and instead she's put it in pots to show him that this is what you were after. Um, so just back to the library example, the book that I was reading, it's called The Midnight Library, And it's basically this girl, she is between the space of life and death, and she visits this library and she sees this librarian, and she has this book of regrets. Um, and over this book of regrets, she tries to, I guess, see that, okay, I really regret doing this, and I wish that I had done this instead of this. And then the librarian hands her a book where she's actually um, done that thing. And but once she realized, and once she moves on into these so many different lives, she still finds that one way or another, she is still suffering because her desires for anything, for her desires are basically a reflection and they're streamlined into the wrong place. And that's sort of the same that we see in this Srimad Bhagavatam verse as well, where the devotees are praying to the Supreme Lord to execute Bhakti Yoga so they can control the restless mind and fix them. And except for devotional service, there is no way to give up this attachment. So, one way or another, there would always be attachment, but it just needs to be streamlined into actually being attached to Krishna. Um, and all of these regrets that basically come through, or that in this book of regrets that she has, they're basically just gross frustrated desire. Like, for example, again, in the same book, this girl, she wanted to be a glaciologist, but when she finally gets there, she realized that, again, there is suffering. Um, so all of this, I guess it's also a reminder that um, we're basically looking for a drop when we can have the whole ocean, um, which are like desiring for things that are only attached to the material, um, which are very small for actually moving it over and actually desiring for the ocean, which is Krishna. Then there is, the from the Book of Regrets, if you move on to the Book of Life, um, this verse also says that there is no way other than Bhakti Yoga. And in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada has mentioned this verse. Manmana bhava madbhakta madhyaji mam namaskuru, and always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer obeisances to me and worship me, being completely absorbed in me. Surely you will come to me. And this is a verse that Krishna, he's repeated it twice in 934 of the Bhagavad Gita and 1865 of the Bhagavad Gita. Basically, I guess giving it as a guarantee. And so in chapter 9, it's titled The Most Confidential Knowledge. Chapter 18, its conclusion. Basically, Krishna's giving that guarantee that yeah, if you always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer my obeisances, then surely you will come to me. Um, and when the residents that are, passing on this prayer, when they pray to the verse, then what they're doing is they're basically asking the power to Krishna to be able to follow this double command that is appearing twice in Bhagavad Gita. It's basically saying, Krishna, you told us what to do. You told us what to do twice, but please give us the grace to fix our mind on you. So it's basically the same way when, we're in school or we're at uni. And if a teacher, I guess, if she repeats the same thing twice, it's likely to come into an exam. And the same thing's applying here. Krishna is saying the same verse twice. Therefore, it is like very, very important. And the other and just while reading Srila Prabhupada Lila Amrita, um, being completely absorbed in me. So in the verse, I think it's Atmanam Matparayana. And Mameve Yuktanevam, if we break it down word by word about how being completely absorbed in Krishna, it's basically moving on the attachment. This is sort of what we saw in Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita as well, just in the final chapters, or in fact the last line that Shyamsundar Prabhu said, where we may be thinking that Srila Prabhupada is asleep, but what he's actually doing is that he's actually staying awake and doing all the thinking. I think the right wording was For a while, I switched off the lights. At about midnight, Prabhupada sat upright and called my name. Sham Sundara, take dictation, he said. Then followed a train of thoughts so lucid and coherent that I could only conclude that while we think Srila Prabhupada is sleeping, he is usually not sleeping, but is thinking, reflecting on ways to serve Krishna more and more. So we're basically getting the right example of getting a live example of what this verse is saying from the Srila Prabhupada reading. Um, Again, if we transpose back into that book, The Midnight Library, at the end of it, this girl, the one that's there, she's basically given this book, and it's a blank book because she's noticed that all in her other life there is anyway suffering. So for this life, she's given a book, and instead of going through and thinking, oh, I regret this and choosing that life, she picks up a pen, and in that she writes, I'm alive. And that is basically also a reflection of how, as living entities, we're, we're between Krishna's marginal potency, because we're always at the crossroad of either go and just be completely absorbed in materialism, or go and follow Krishna. And um, And this crossroad, if we again transpose it into that, it's basically having the free will of having all of these multiple lives, or multiple alternate lives, and still choosing suffering, or moving it on into, or just completely finding the exit out of the library and um, choosing the spiritual world. Now, with her writing "I am alive," if we transpose them, that basically just means about aligning that drop that we have into the ocean. So aligning all these small desires into the great desire of actually serving Krishna, actually being attached to Krishna, or actually living this verse, man mana bhava mad bhakto, um, instead of, I guess, going in and finding the library where, we're the perfect version of ourselves, because there is no such book that exists where everything's perfect. There will still be suffering. And yeah, so we just need to, I guess, choose this life in terms of that I am alive, and just execute Bhakti Yoga as this verse is saying. And even in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that we don't give up attachment, we just transfer it. So instead of being attached to the body of stool and urine, we start moving it over and being attached to Krishna. Um, and how all of these other living entities that are around, species, and even the demigods, how they seem to watch us and um, think about how we have this human form being the perfect lab to realize Krishna. So instead of spending our time in the library of regrets, or going around trying to find the perfect life, one decision leading to each of the different outcomes, but at the end of it still suffering, um, it's basically just to pick up the pen and write in a blank new book that I'm alive, which means that moving on this attachment to Krishna and fixing our minds on the Lord, as Krishna said twice in the Bhagavad Gita as well. So this is all that I had prepared for today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Danvat Pranam. Hare Krishna Nandrach Prabhuji Abhechad and Prabhuji. Should we finish here?
It appears there's
Yeah.
no person to make any comments. So if there is,
Okay.
so the devotees, if you have any comments to make, or any
Hare
questions,
Krishna.
please ask her.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I just wanted to thank. It's a very beautiful lecture.
Thank you, Mataji.
And I remember that story about the girl with these vessels of stool and urine and vomit and so on. It was quite shocking. And there was another example, like no matter how much we love someone, for example, how much men can be attracted by a beautiful woman, and so many men can be, admiring her. As soon as she dies, she stops being that attractive. So it's
Yeah.
something within this body full of stool and urine that makes a person attractive. And even the materialists are on the same page with us. So it's not just, the beautiful body is enough to be attracted.
It's
It should be something else within this body to
that
make
hiss.
it attractive. Yeah. And yeah, thanks for reminding about that story. It was a very shock content when I heard from Chaitanya Chandra Charan Prabhu this story. I was amazed when how that girl managed to escape from the man who was forcing her to marry her or whatever. And she just
Yes.
showed him that he's just got captivated, attached with this body which has nothing to do with her actually. Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the book. I would definitely find and read that book. Thank you. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you very much for the very nice class
You?
today. In this regard, it came
Hare
to my
Krishna.
mind about two other stories about Billa Mangal Thakur and also Ramcharitmanas writer Tulsidas, Goswami Tulsidas, and both of them were in their previous life were attached to women. In case of Billa Mangal Thakur, he was attached to a prostitute, and her name was Chintamani, and once Chintamani told her that the affection, that the attachment he has got for Chintamani, he should redirect it for the Lord, and that transformed the life of Bila Mangal Thakur. In a similar way, the Goswami Tulsidas was also attached to his wife, and too much. And one day, his wife told him that if the attachment he has got for her, if it is transferred to the Lord, the whole life will change. And that changed Goswami Tulsidas in his later life, and he wrote Ramayana. So in both the cases, the attachment, if we had for the material body, is transferred for the love for the God, then we can make our life successful. And because the attachment is very difficult to overcome for material things, but the attachment should be changed to the Lord and for His devotees. And there is also a verse, if I can remember, in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-20 probably. It is Prasangam majaram pasamatmano kavayo vidu Soevo sadhu sukrito mokshadara mapabritam. So it is very difficult to change the attachment. But if we change the attachment from material things to the Lord and His devotees, that changes the consciousness permanently, and we find the purpose of life in this way. So it would be always our endeavor to shift our attachment from material things to the Lord, and in this way we can make our life successful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
It appears, Mataji, there is no other person to make comments, or if anybody wants to make, otherwise you can conclude the class. Thank you once again for your nice class today.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Kripasindhu
kripasindhubhyascha Patitanam
Vaishnavebhyo
pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo
Vaishnavibhyo
namaha.
Namo Namo.
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Brindu ki jai.
Jai.
Vaishnavebhyo ki
Shri
jai.
Krishna
Hare
Kanta
Krishna.
Mataji ki jai. Srila
Jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada
Srila
ki jai.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.